Little intro, I'll make it quick, promise. My name is Boomer Sassman. I'm right outside of Asheville, North Carolina. I've been here about 20 years. And for the last 19 of those years, I've run a company called Big Boom Design. And it's a WordPress web development agency. We kind of grew early on by getting businesses that were really like chambers of commerce and TDAs and EDCs and a lot of directory-based websites, and therefore you build a directory site. The businesses underneath them are also needing websites. So I've run through this process over the past 20 years well over 500 times, and this process being overhauling a website. Either overhauling or coming up with a new site, but the overhauling is a really, really messy, often process. Whether that is multiple people being in the mix, from graphic designers to front-end and back-end developers, project managers, at times outsourcing certain hardcore dev aspects of it, the client's involvement. This whole entire process can be really, really tedious and messy. And I know it intimately. And it's been a pain point for 20 years that I've tried really, really hard to streamline, clean up, button up, tighten up, shorten the time frames, all of those aspects. And so this project that I'm going to run through with you guys today is it's very much a build it as you fly it type of system. I'm actively using this overhaul system that I'm working on. I'm working on it every day, both to make the system better as well as to create a final product and output that does exactly that. It cleans up these messy steps along the way. So real quick kind of recap of how we used to do it, going back everything from like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. I can remember days where I brought my entire team into a big room with a big whiteboard, and we laid out color-coded sticky notes of the entire process. And we identified the 140 steps that are needed to get from clients reached out about a site overhaul to analyzing the site, figuring out the sitemap, early on concepts, wireframes, sitemaps, submitting designs, setting up dev sites. This is the really messy process that I was talking about. Along the way, there's all these other tools getting pulled into the mix that might not jive very well with the team or with the overall process. So getting things plugged into Basecamp or Asana or another project management software. Collecting feedback from the clients about what you like, what you don't like, color changes, fonts, imagery, you name it, all these pieces and parts. I remember being in back-to-back meetings over the years where I was frantically trying to write down all of these notes, and there's 2 or 3 people from the client side, kind of all with contradictory ideas about where things were going, and I had to ingest all of that, review all of that, turn that into something meaningful that I could then put into these project management softwares, explain to the team, assign those things, and then play this hot potato with, okay, we've got the wireframe, let's get it back to the client. Okay, the client approved it, here are the notes. Let's get this revised. And this whole process was really painful. So this tool that I'm going to show you guys is kind of the result of that frustration over the past 20 years. And I'm probably 2-3 months into the development of this. And like I said, it's very much a work in progress. I'm not going to promise that I don't crash something or that we don't get an error message, but I thought this would be a really cool project to kind of walk you guys through. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm actually going to use, let me pick this client here. We'll start with just kind of a lay of the land of what's going on here. And what I'm showing you is the less buggy version. And what I mean by that is, let me zoom in some. This is where everything kind of originated, and this was very much function over form for the last couple months. And then just in the past few weeks, I'm thinking this tool is meant to make clean, quality designs for a website overhaul process based on a brand that's been extracted from the website and based on any assets or reference links about what that client wants the website to look like. That's the big picture here, and to streamline this whole process. So we've been actively using this to try to do a bunch of these overhauls, and then as we bump up against these issues, kind of going through and fixing them. So I'm going to, rather than kind of jump into the end and then work backwards, let's just start with kind of me adding a new client in here. And I'm going to do the Hendersonville TDA, which which is, again, we do a lot of tourism sites, and we'll do just test 26 on this one. I'm going to create a new client in the system. And now, once they've been added, we go down to them, Hendersonville TDA. There's a series of steps that you can kind of work through, and the first one of them is just going to be a brand extraction. And so I'm going to come over here, and I will grab the website URL. And you can either, if you have, most people I've realized through this whole process, they don't really have any substantial brand guide. Call it a brand Bible, a brand guide, a brand document. It's cobbled together, it's scattered. People don't have the fonts that their logos are built in. They don't have an organized set of named, sized images. They don't have what their mission or tone and do's and don'ts for their brand guide are. It's really messy. So that in itself is a big chunk of homework that we always have to give to the client that we can't do a whole lot to help with until the past year or two, thanks to AI, obviously. So that ran to the website. It did a tagline, mission, vision, brand story, core values. It extracted the color palette, grabbed the fonts, imagery style. It kind of reverse engineers the images that are seen on that site. Just for reference, I will drag the actual site over here just so that you guys can kind of see what it scanned. So it scanned through this website and brought all the stuff back in, identified a potential logo. If logos are set as SVGs, that's basically a logo that's built in code, and so it doesn't render exactly like we would recognize it, but it pulls it in. And so now that a brand has been extracted from this, it's saved in, or I can go and edit anything that I feel is incorrect. And so that's an opportunity, again, for the client to jump in and say, hey, that's not exactly what we would say about our tone. So the next thing I'm going to do, now that I've got that brand established in here, is I'm going to crawl the menu, and we will jump over into the sitemap section. Let's do this right here. And then the next big challenge is how do we figure out what the sitemap is, what's important, what are the levels of nesting, and all these different types of things. So that did a real quick, it just first goes and looks at if there's a sitemap.xml, which is a public thing, and hopefully it is there. And this grabbed the top 200 pages, and I can say import these pages in. So it pulled those in. Now, the next thing, and sorry if I'm moving a little quick, anybody stop me if you got questions, or I'll just kind of run through this and try to keep it efficient. The next thing I want to do is go in and create a brief. This is a design brief. And so I'm going to say this is a homepage rebuild version 1. And then as far as the things that I can throw at this are things like other websites that the client has said, hey, we really like the website for, and I'm going to go ahead and do this as I'm talking through it. Visit Idaho has a great looking site. It's one of the few states I haven't been to, but they got a great site and I'd love to visit. I'm going to add one more link, and I'm going to use Visit Wyoming. And I'll throw these two reference sites in here. Again, just so that you guys have a visual on this. This is the Idaho site. Pretty cool design. Kind of edgy front hero video with that overlay is pretty neat. So in this brief, I'm basically saying we're going to tackle the home page, and I want to specifically grab the content from their home page, and so that's going to be my scraping page. So I've added 2 links that it can go and look at. And sometimes clients will send over screenshots and they say, hey, we really like this slider section, or we really like how they did the newsletter collection or the donate now or the events calendar. And so we can drop in those screenshots there. And then I can go ahead and say scrape it. It's going to basically run out, grab the content from that website, and pull this back in as kind of the original source layout. So that is the little visual of it, gives us some call out tags. And now that this is in place, we've got the brand, we've got the sitemap, and we've got the reference links that the client likes. And I can say generate layout concept. Now, I'm going to jump away because I don't want to sit here and just let this thing churn through and just make small talk. So I want to jump over while this is running, and we'll come back to this once it gets actually generated. But there's some cool next steps to this that I want to walk through. So I ran through this earlier today just to kind of just kick the tires and make sure that certain things were going to work. The sitemap was going to get pulled in. That's when I noticed that the SVG wasn't getting rendered, things like that. But once these pages get created, the really cool thing that we can do is, so these are some of the ones that I ran earlier today. And I'll come down here and let's pick this homepage version. I can say preview. And it grabbed that copy, it grabbed that font, it grabbed their color scheme, and it created this first edition version. And it happens in a couple minutes. And I can come over here and say open if I want to see this in a whole new tab. There are obvious issues and there's obvious concerns as far as things that we would immediately go and change. In this case, I noticed it didn't pull in any actual real images from the site, whereas it does on some other images. That could be based on the file type. It could be based on images being stored off the server, things like that. But the really cool thing that I want to walk through here is what we've built in here is the ability to have that version spun up, go in and edit that version. And I want to pop this out so we get like a full look at what's going on here. And what this gives me is, I'm going to zoom out just a bit, back down to 125. So what I have now is a chatbot sitting on the left that is unique and specific to this design. And I can go in and chat with this design in as simple of a way as I can say that. I can chat with this design about visual overlap issues, clutter, wrong font set, imagery, things like that. And so what I'd like to do is, let me jump over and see if I can, well, let's go ahead and throw one at this. Again, these back and forth sometimes take a while because it's basically rescanning back down through, having to then process either the image that you threw at it or the query or the question or the comment that you gave it. So let's just do something easy, or not easy. Let's say something like, we'll need more calls, CTAs, calls to action, in the header for build your journey. It's kind of an arbitrary thing, but we'll see what it comes back with. So once this ingests this feedback, and it's going to tell me what it heard and what it's going to go through and change. And so it said I added build your journey, primary CTA plus 2 supporting CTAs in the header, desktop and mobile, while keeping the existing brand button style. So it'll run through, process, and update that code, and then we'll update the actual version over here, which is pretty cool. So again, we're 15 minutes into this little thing, and we've got the first iteration of a design. We've got the brand standard kind of on file. We've got the full sitemap in place. And now the next thing that we can do, I'll jump back over here and close this guy down. Let's jump back up here to the... Once we've gone in, and let me zoom back in, sorry. Once we've gone in and established a page that we like the look of, we've fine-tuned it, we've chatted with it, we can save that and say, this is the home page that we want to present to the client. We can add that into this little client portal that we've created that lets them go through and interact with it. I'm going to jump over to that in just a second because I think that's a crucial piece of this, is that client relationship, that client feedback loop, and how difficult that can be. And there's a lot of this kind of built specifically around that. But what I want to show here is that now that we have this, let's say that we had gotten that home page dialed in and we have set that as our standard, we can then jump into the sitemap page and basically just blast down this list and generate these different designs and kind of queue them up based on the order that we want to show them to the client. So we might create 2 or 3 different versions of the home page. We might create a couple different versions of a business directory page or a maps page, and we would kind of offer those up as that first batch that they could then go in and give us feedback on. So I'm going to jump up to, let's jump over, I'm going to run down here to a different client. So we're doing some work to rebuild the North Carolina Arboretum website. Awesome organization located here in Asheville. Super excited to be working on this one. So this is a view of what the client interaction side of this tool kind of looks like. And the way this works, and there's a really, really long page because we've been generating, this is like 300 or 400 pages on the website. This is a big one. So just to kind of start up top though, I'm going to jump into one of these concepts, open it in a new tab. And now what we've got the ability to do is once we send this batch of pages to the client, the main thing we need to know is if there are 2 or 3 variations of a header, which one do you really like for the home page or for every page? If there are a few different variations of a rule of 3 or a rule of 4, which one is your favorite? So that's kind of a big bucket. The other one is, what are the very specific things? That terminology should change. That photo shouldn't be what it is. That's not the font that we typically use for the headers. Whatever that feedback might be. We've built in this little plus sign at the top of each section throughout all of these different pages that get generated. And there's also the ability to add a note. So this has really replaced Google Docs and the messiness that is different people adding notes into Google Docs, trying to put comments in there, do strike-throughs, organizing all of that, especially with a bigger team, both on the client side and on my side, getting all that stuff organized and then conveying that over to, again, the graphic designers, the front-end developers, that whole process. So with the note aspect, they can come in, turn on the note mode, click into any spot and say, not the font we use for headers. And all of these notes and all of these saved elements get stored on the backside for me and my team to go and churn through. And basically, it pins the note and it pins the favorites to all the different sections that we can go through and say, apply this change, apply this change, apply this change. And that's as if the client were just chatting with that little interface that we were looking at before. The other thing that's pretty neat that's in here is we can do a swap image. And we can go through and either my team or somebody on their side can go through and say, this is the image that should be applied to that section. And all of that can get saved. So again, we're kind of blasting through this, but that's the whole point. Is this used to take, in some cases, months and months and months. And we're 20 minutes in, and we've got, the client dashboard aspect of it. We've got a series of pages that have been kind of generated, iterated on, promoted into this gallery that they can go and interact with. The ability for their team to go and log in, put in their notes, put in their favorites, and then jumping back over to the backside of the site. This is where we can go in and review all of those notes, apply them into those different designs. We can go in and see which elements have been most favorited across their team, and essentially compile new versions of pages based on the client feedback almost instantly. Both the edits to that they added as notes and the favorite items that they've selected to quickly compile like a curated, this is what you all have said that you like the best. And then obviously give them the ability to override that whenever they want to. The one other aspect that I'll mention, and I kind of blasted through it quickly, but it is over here, and this is kind of a neat little tool that this is, again, back onto the client dashboard side, and this lets them actually go in and adjust these colors, adjust the fonts, play around with border radius on boxes and buttons, and then save this as a saved preset. So if they wanted to pass this around their team and say, hey, if people want to give feedback on what this style set should look like, they can go in, save that, and it actually adjusts these designs on the fly for that user based on what they're interacting with. So it's kind of like a really cool in-the-moment little demo where you could put somebody who is not a coder, not a developer, maybe not even a graphic designer, in control of playing around with it and just saving it. It doesn't apply across the whole board, but it gives us that reference for that person really likes this style this way. Again, kind of touch on, there's a photo section, the gallery is their client portal. And then one really, really cool thing about this whole process is the next step of our process is once we've got this set of approved and established pages, we've ingested their feedback, we've found the favorite items, our next step is to try to get that out of this tool and into WordPress/Divi. I'm an exclusive WordPress guy for the last 20 years. We've been exclusive into the Divi space, which is a theme that is used. It's one of the most popular page builder themes out there. And we've been using Divi as our main theme for probably 10 to 12, maybe almost 15 years if it's even been around that long. So that next process for us is to export certain pages as they are approved out into a JSON file, which can then be brought over. And so we'll go up and grab the impact page. We built in a settings section where I can really lock together the version of Divi that they're running, how we want to handle the images, where they get sent, is there any custom CSS to be uploaded, and then we can basically validate, takes this snapshot, this just image in a way, it's just kind of like a flat JPEG, and then converts that into the Divi JSON file format that we need to then go over and very easily make a new page, import that layout, and then we can get from brand new design straight to a JSON file, straight into a page built inside of Divi. And I feel like that process at the end is really unique to what we do. And so I might have lost a couple people there in that last little bit, but the alternative to that is I take that design that's been approved by the client, that was created by the graphic designer, that was rolled around through their team, sent back and forth, and then take that to a front-end developer who then has to match and rebuild all of that manually for every one of those pages. The elements, the content, the copy paste over, and what we've now done is been able to extract it all, wrap it with a new design, bundle it up as a JSON file, on brand, and then pump it back over straight into either a brand new site or a rebuild project that we're